Hello, I'm Adam Blum, CTO of HealthKey. In 2024, I was diagnosed with follicular lymphoma and found it challenging to find trials that I was truly eligible for that were suitable for me. So I built my own open source trial matcher, and in the process, encountered some principles or learned some principles that I'd like to encourage other trial matchers to follow and you to use in your evaluation of clinical trial matching technology. It's my conflict slide. Trial matching today doesn't actually match trials. Commercial clinical trial matchers don't actually ask you enough questions to do a trial matcher. And then there are a raft of open source matchers that have emerged recently that try to use LLMs, but they just use patient vignettes, brief descriptions of the patient to match. They just rank the trials. They don't determine if they're eligible, and if the doctor labeled gold standard is in the top 5, they say it's a match. Of course, that doesn't determine eligibility. And the suitability is opaque. Ranking conflates eligibility with goodness. Is the trial right for them? The clinician, of course, tries to use it, but the patient is not involved in that the process of determining whether it's good for them. And of course, you don't know whether you were truly eligible. So the cost of getting it wrong is trial matching. Trial participation is much lower than it should be, even amongst trials that patients have access to. It's 8%. If you use all trials that might be harder to get to, the number is significantly lower. So the principles that I've learned, I call them begin principles, and we will go into each of these one by one. So you want to get a complete record, and even when the EHR is available, the patient record is rarely complete. The imaging might be in one place, labs at another, and so you want to have a dialogue with the patient to truly fill out the record. And luckily, with the emergence of large language models, this is fairly straightforward to do, and it also lets you deal with the vocabulary mismatch between the attributes you're looking for and what the patient knows. So you start with a structured intake. Always use a FHIR feed if you have it, even PDF upload. And then identify the gaps against eligibility, and then ask against the eligible trials, and then ask those questions. Don't ask every question. Don't try to get a complete patient record. Just try to ask the questions that will get them eligible to more trials. So, what's the tricky part of this? It's getting the structure out of unstructured criteria text. People have tried approaches to doing structured authoring of trials. They have not taken off. So we need some other way to get the structured attribute by attribute trials. There's a naive LLM based approach where you give it the trial text and the patient record and say, do they match? That doesn't work. There are several problems with that. The accuracy is quite low. Or you can do per attribute extraction, where you feed each you have a prompt per attribute created in a workbench used by subject matter experts that then for each trial, those prompts are submitted to the LLM to get for each attribute the values, the required values. So, and then you can focus on measuring the accuracy and then iteratively work on those prompts that will then be executed against all the trials so that you end up with a truly structured trials database. The question is, does this work? So just one result presented last year at ASH is 0.85 F1. And one of the things I will definitely recommend is that you want to evaluate this accuracy per attribute, not per trial. And that allows you to focus on getting those prompts better and better. So the next principle is goodness for the patient, also called suitability. The problem is today's matchers conflate eligibility and goodness into a single score, and the patient is not involved. So there needs to be a different approach. So the approach is multi-criteria decision analysis, patient weighted. So the patient weights, we ask for patient priorities among risk, benefit, burden, and distance, and the patient weights those. Any rubric is probably better than none. I happen to use the rubric for patient burden from Getz et al. At Tufts, and the rubric for benefit from ESMO MCBS. We created our own rubric for risk and distance. But the key thing is to have a rubric for those things and then use patient weights to come up with the overall score. So here's an example. Patient very willing to travel, like me, for the most benefit. So that's weighted at 40%. Another patient cares most about burden, and that's weighted at 40%. So they each have their own things that they care about the most, and they will result in different scores. So if you're going to build this and have it work inside the whole ecosystem to get patient data and to analyze results, you want to use FHIR for interoperability, and then you want to use OMOP as the place that you store it so you can analyze it. The problem is that OMOP is very normalized. You have a patient table and it points to other tables with lots of rows for things like the procedures and the lab measurements and the observations and the drug exposures, and you're not going to be able to do rapid matching over a large amount of trials with that. So we developed a different approach called CT-OMOP that I'll briefly mention later that flattens it out. The general idea is to have a flattened projection from whatever your database is so you can do high performance matching. Final answer is be navigator oriented. Don't try to replace the patient navigator. Just design it so you can escalate things to the patient navigator. So the benefits of that is that you can have informed consent quality by involving them in the process, dropout reduction, and then you can make the navigators much more productive. So these are the 5 principles. Just as an example of it, and again, I want to create general principles. We're not trying to advertise HealthKey's open source stack, but the key ones for trial matching is CT-OMOP, which is this OMOP with a flattened projection that you're able to do quick trial matching with, and we've also added a number of attributes to the OMOP tables that have not quite gotten into the OMOP's genomics extension and oncology extension, so that you can assess full trial eligibility. And then the exact open source matcher is also there if you go to the HealthKey site. But the important thing is, and of course, these are all free and open source, but you can look at these projects to see especially the exact project, does it comply with these principles? So regardless, whether you're building one or you're evaluating one, decouple eligibility from goodness. If you're building one, measure extraction per attribute, let the patient set the weights of the various factors, hand it off to a navigator. If you're evaluating one, don't look at this top N as the metric. Ask what the accuracy is per attribute. If you're evaluating one, ask which registries are covered. Ask how you're getting patient preferences. If you're buying one, ask whether the eligibility verdicts are explainable per criteria. It's machine learning ranked is not an answer. Let's find truly eligible trials for patients that are good for them based on their unique needs. Thank you.